I'm Victoria Kelly.
I'm Hannah Cogswell.
I'm Jessie Dishman.
I'm Emma Cartwright.
I'm Aaliyah Chavis.
And we're Group 5.
Okay, first question.
So what are the costs and benefits of the new migration? Would you describe the scenario as a sort of liberation? Why or why not?
So, how does she describe the gender revolution first? What exactly is it? What do you think? Where did I highlight that?
World gender-wide revolution in both rich and poor countries. Fewer families can rely solely on a male breadwinner. Is that what it is?
I think it's basically that people from women from lower income countries, not income, you know what I mean, are migrating to richer countries to do the work that the wealthy can't do. I think that's how she defines.
Or that we don't want to do, basically.
Because it's, right, class-based female migration, yeah. So it's the lower classes are migrating and moving away from their families into new, higher-class families to be nannies, maids, and then sometimes unwilling, forced sex workers, too. So that's how she describes that. Okay.
What are the costs and benefits of this new migration?
Obviously, a benefit to it, not really for them, but for us, is the jobs that we don't want to do. Someone else is more than willing, because of the money that they'll make, is more than what they would make in their own country.
And it's a benefit to them because they're making more money.
Yes.
But then it's also a con because they have to leave their families. But even when they do, it's still gender-based because when they leave behind their children, their sisters and grandmothers and others are basically taking over their role, you know.
And so then the women there have to do the male's job, or the father's job. Because most of the time, I guess fathers will sometimes come over the women, so they gotta play both roles.
And even the jobs they get here are gendered, the maids and sex workers and what was the other one you said?
Nannies.
It's all womanly type roles.
Because in those countries, it's mostly the men that make, the most money anyway. So when the mother role has to leave, then that does put the burden on the rest of the family, which just makes a pattern of oppression.
Right.
I think my favorite thing that she said in the article, which is a huge cost of this whole migration, is that, to quote, it's on 55, and it's basically, the presence of immigrant nannies does not enable affluent women to enter the workforce. It enables affluent men to continue avoiding the second shift, which is a huge thing that we're seeing, is that even though women are taking jobs because they have to, men still aren't going, oh, well, that means that I still need to help out more at home. They do the same amount of work that they did before their wife or girlfriend or whatever partner entered the workforce, and now you have someone else to do the work that he's avoiding. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really interesting, and that's a huge cost. Because that's just furthering not stereotypes, but putting back the feminist movement, if you will. Because they still aren't helping out at home.
Another thing on page 55 says, immigrant women may seem desirable sexual partners for the same reason that first world employers believe them to be especially gifted as caregivers. They are thought to embody the traditional feminine qualities of nurturance and eagerness to please. So I guess that kind of goes back to what you were just saying about feminism, and they're there to you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
There's also this whole generation of kids that are growing up without their mom figure, and their dad's not really an active part in their life necessarily, so that's a con of it too. All these people growing up without that motherly figure, they are viewing their aunts and grandmothers more like mothers, and they're actually missing out on the motherly bond that you only have with
Yeah, it basically said in it that she realized like how it was affecting her children's lives and how they were growing up and becoming like I guess not ideal. And at the end of the story, she still went back to be the nanny because the money that she was making to provide for them was more important than like social factors that were impacting their lives in negative ways. You know.
And like they even said in there somewhere, I'm not gonna be able to find it, but it was like to get paid. Oh, here it is. In Hong Kong, for instance, the wages of a Filipino domestic, so like a nanny or a house caretaker or whatever, are 15 times the amount the person could make as a school teacher back in the Philippines. So like even if she wanted to stay at home and get what would be considered, you know, a good decent job, it still pays so much less. Sorry, that scared me. It's paid so much less than if she moved. So there's no benefit in her really staying if she's going to get paid so little and her family will live in poverty.
Right.
She wouldn't be able to provide for her family.
Yeah.
And who knows, like, what her partner or husband or whatever's making, so they may not be able to provide what they want to for their children.
Right.
Or what they need to.
So even despite the negative aspects of it, like for her kids, the one who like almost committed suicide
Three
or, like,
times.
Yeah, something awful. Yeah.
like even though that's a negative thing, she's still providing for them.
She's still able to send them money wherever they're at. But then it's like you really just have like a pressure on you to choose which life. You can either like be a mom and be poor at home with your family, or you can be away from them and let them suffer, I suppose, but provide.
Mm-hmm. Is there another one? Do you think this is liberation or no? What do you think?
No.
No.
Not really. I mean, I think people would want to think of it as liberating because, oh, we're freeing them from the evils of poverty and look what they can do. They can make all this money. That's great, but look what they're doing. They're not going over to be a teacher or a scientist or anything that you would consider, quote, noble. They're going over there to be a nanny
dirty
and
work,
maid
basically.
and, yeah, right.
And
Which-
also, people view it as, oh, we're freeing them from the homemaker stereotype and giving them opportunity to get out in the workforce and actually make money to provide for the family. But they don't realize that it's actually hurting the home instead of, well, is benefits and negatives to all of that. So I don't think it's liberating. I think it's like facilitated liberate. It's like a facade. It makes
Yeah.
you think you're liberated.
There's even
Right.
cons to them coming and being like nannies to children, because a lot of the time when they're nannies to children, those children view them more as like a mother figure than their actual parents, because when you need a nanny, you're usually not around your kids, so that's a negative.
Like, it's really sad because I have two jobs, and one of them I'm actually a part-time nanny. But one of the families, and most of them are just like, oh, come every afternoon from 3 to 4 or something. But there's this family that I work for, and they have a nanny from the time the kids get up until the kids go to sleep. Even if they're home, there's someone there, yeah. Like, one of my friends works for, they have like 3 different nannies, and she gets there at 6 a.m., she wakes them up, she gets them dressed. The parents are like sitting around reading a magazine, getting ready for work. They go to work. She gets the kids to school. They go to school. Someone else comes in the afternoon, does their homework with them, makes them like dinner. They eat dinner and go to bed. Like,
What's the point of having kids
It's
if you're
so
not going to be
sad.
there and you
Yeah.
rely on someone else to provide for them?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's really sad.
It is.
This isn't really, I don't think this really ties into a question. Wait. Well, okay, I don't think this really ties into a question, but I think this is an interesting point to bring up, is that she kind of talks about how where the system comes from is because she calls it the deadbeat dad syndrome. So basically how the marked failure of the first world governments, like the United States government, is failing to meet the needs created by its women's entry into the workforce. And, like, I don't know if any of you guys watched the State of the Union address. I had to for a class. That's the only reason I know. But Obama talked a lot about, like, we need to start offering quality public child care for women so that they can go back into the workforce. They can earn an income so they can support for their family and not just work to pay for the child care. And so I think that it was really interesting that she brought that up, and like that is where a lot of this comes from. Is you have to go out, women have to go back into the workforce. They don't have a family member. They can't afford like daycare or babysitters, so they have to go through these agencies and get these women who are willing to work for what we would consider little wages, but to them are a lot. I thought that was cool too. Or not cool. I thought that was an interesting point. So I don't know. Unrelated.
I feel like the second question, talking about the caring work that migrant women give, I feel like when we were discussing how men try to avoid the second shift, that goes into that because they really, you know, the second shift, that's basically, you know, when the kids are home, you gotta watch them, you gotta cook dinner, all of that, and they're, you know, out making the money, and then the women are just kind of left to pick up all the rest of the slack, you know. I feel like women have a double load with the migrant worker situation because they have to work, and then the women of the house have to pick up that slack.
Yeah. Like, a lot of men don't realize that it should really be considered two jobs. So, like, they have their day job or night job, whatever time they work, and then they come home and take care of a child. That's two jobs.
Right.
So, like, that second job, taking care of a child, needs to be split a lot more equally in order for them to actually have, like, a healthy relationship and a good family, I guess, if you will.
I feel like when the men come home from work, they're just like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to take care of the kids.
What?
Maybe just hit save as. We're having computer difficulties. There you go. Oh.
Or just hit reminder.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. We're good. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, how like the men, they just don't think that after they get home from a job it's necessary to take care of the kid. They're just like, well, why don't you just do it? I'm tired. I've been working all day. Well, yeah, so have I, but I have to take care of the kid, kind of thing. Especially if they can't pay for like a nanny or a babysitter.
Yeah, even for stay-at-home moms, like a lot of them complain that is a full-time job. Raising a child is a full-time job, and men don't realize that until they actually have to do it themselves.
Yep.
They're like, oh, okay, I respect you a lot more now, or let's get a nanny.
Yeah.
Like, they're not gonna keep doing it. Like, they're gonna make an alternative so they still don't have to do equal share or as much of the work.
How does this example demonstrate that we cannot talk about a single category of women when addressing feminist issues?
Because it's based on class.
Yeah, women all have different experiences, like the privilege thing that we talked about last week. That those on the lower side of things have, like, they don't have the option to go out and get a maid or a nanny to come and do the stuff that they don't want to do. They have to do it. Like, personally, I'm a full-time student. I have a job. I still have to go home and clean up my house because my son is destroying everything. And it's just, it makes for a very long day. Like, it's really hard to get schoolwork done whenever he's dumping out bags of chips and pulling stuff out of trash cans. It's like, no, stop!
Right.
Like, your attention's always divided, and it's hard to give anything 100% of your effort.
Yeah, you can see that, like, even with celebrities. Let's take Kim Kardashian. She's a mogul or whatever, always on the go, and she has a kid. Now, you know she has somebody to watch that kid all the time. It doesn't matter if they're hired or friends, family. And I mean, it's harder to get somebody, like a friend or a family, to just watch your kid for free or not, and that's even worse when you gotta pay them. But you know, she's obviously not doing all of that by herself, being a businesswoman
Right.
and being a mother at the same time. That's very difficult.
And the thing about like Kim Kardashian, she doesn't have to go out and do like she goes out shopping and it's a public event. Like she gets paid to go into
Right.
these
Mhm.
stores, and so that's an option for her, and she does that. She doesn't need the nanny the way that the working mom does,
Right.
And the working mom doesn't have a choice.
Exactly.
And there's like, I don't remember what it's called, there's a term for it where women feel like because they can see Kim Kardashian having it all and like managing to whatever she does as a career, I don't really understand her life, but okay, so she has this career and she has, look how thin she is and look how pretty she is and she can do this, and it's like, oh, and then look at me, like I have the same amount of kids, I have a job, and I can't do that. Sometimes they compare themselves and it like actually damages the idea of what it is to be a mom.
Not even just comparing yourself to like Kim Kardashian, but like social media in general.
Oh,
You compare
yeah.
yourself to everyone, and everyone only puts on social media what they want people to see.
Mhm.
So you don't see what their house really looks like 90% of the time. You only see like pretty pictures when they make it pretty.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
it's definitely adds a whole nother level to it when you add in the comparison factor, because you see these people that seem to have it so much better than you, and not just because of privilege, but because of the fact that they can make it appear to be so.
Even in commercials, like
Mhm.
when you see a family commercial, there's always a man and a woman. You never see a single
A
mother.
boy and a girl.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you never see, like, I can't really remember a commercial where I've seen the mother come home from work and the dad's cooking dinner and, like, you know,
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I'm sure there might be one, like a parody
Right.
commercial or something.
All right. So what else can we say about number 3? About how we cannot talk about a single category of woman.
There's
That's a
different
hard one.
types of women. I don't know, like there's just so many different women are defined, well, they're defined by like what parts you have, but then you also have different types of women. Like, oh, I might be a tomboy, but I'm still a woman. You might be a girly girl, you're still a woman. You might be hardworking, I might be lazy. Like, you just can't, when you put women in a single category, it just doesn't line up because everyone is different, you know? Like, you have different experiences, different race, different class, different everything. So, like, when guys are like, oh, women, they're so confusing. No, only that girl that you talked to is confusing or dated.
Mhm. So do y'all think that a single man in this, like, not migrant, a migrant man that had to go off and just work for his family, you know, but he still provided in the same, there is no woman figure, like, woman
Mhm.
role. Like, do you think the feminist issues would still stay true to him? Or do you think he would have it
if
easier?
he left his family to provide for them, then it's still a feminist issue because
Mhm.
it's a single woman left back at home taking care of kids because the dad's gone. It's still included in the issues that we're discussing. If there's a family involved where there is a mom taking care of the kids back at home.
Right. But, like, what if there isn't a mom, you know?
Oh, if he's like a single dad.
Yeah, like
he
a
has to
single
leave it
dad.
with, like,
So it kind of goes into, you know, it's not really even like a gender issue there. That's more of like a
social.
social
issue.
economic issue.
Right, but then it still plays on the gender roles because if a man leaves to migrate and become like an immigrant worker, he's gonna play into his gender roles where it's like construction work and
Yeah,
you know other
he's still gonna
manly
make
things
more
that are
money.
looked at. Yeah.
And jobs are
Definitely.
always going to be
It's a-
gendered.
Mm-hmm.
The bad thing about it, though, is this movement, how we were talking about it being a sort of liberation. These people aren't just doing the work we don't want to do, but we're paying them less than what we would pay
Mhm.
someone here who is doing it. We would pay a nanny who is from here so much more than a nanny from another country because we think of them as somehow a lesser human. like it's better for them because they're making more than they would there,
Yeah.
but not as much as we would pay someone here. You know
Right.
what I mean?
And they're willing to do it.
Yeah, because
We're
they don't know
not
yet.
willing to do it
Right.
because we're like, I can make
I'm better
more.
than this.
Yeah, and they're just grateful just for the opportunity. That's
Just-
sad.
So would being okay, so you know what an au pair is? Like, is that
Mhm.
kind of like the same thing? Like, you know, like a migrant worker coming to nanny for us, or say me going over to Mexico and being an au pair. Do you like?
What
Does
is-
that go through like a special agency though, or is
I
it
don't know.
just okay? Because I don't know either. Because I feel like it's kind of the same, but I feel like on the same level, an au pair is maybe gonna get paid more, or they have
yeah,
that.
it's usually a white
yeah.
upper class person who's coming to take care of your kids, so you're still going to pay them more. The issues are still there, and I don't see them going to Mexico
Yeah.
to take care of kids. They're just going to be coming like here or like Great Britain or something. Like it's going to be places where they will get paid what they think they should be making for the most part.
Yeah, like even with an au pair, we see that as a great opportunity, right? Because we're traveling abroad and all this stuff. So I feel like that also ties into the wherever it was liberation movement. Is that they think, oh, this is a great opportunity to them. They're going to America or they're going wherever, and they're gonna have, you know, all this opportunity. When in reality, it's no, you're going here to do this work.
And then you have to go
viewed-
back.
Yep, to be viewed this way. You are going back.
Right.
Right. We
Yeah.
kind of do it by choice. Like with the no pair, like we're like, yeah, like you said, we're gonna go travel and I'm gonna go nanny here for a couple months and then go back, you know? It's a great experience and there it's kinda life or death for them. Well, you know.
Well, kind of like
Sounds
it's
kind of
a-
bad. I was like, oh.
it's the line between poverty and
I mean, providing for your kids,
Right,
or
right.
being like well off.
being
I
poor.
guess.
Yeah, exactly.
How are migrant women exploited by a global economic system?
Well, that goes into what we've been discussing about how we would pay them less for doing the same job. I mean, like, au pairs are still considered like a servant, but so they're not on the same level, but they're still like a human. It's more like, I'll tell you to go do this, but it's looked at more favorably than
Mhm.
being like a migrant worker. Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a stigma attached to it.
Mhm.
Well, and like also, it kind of is giving countries like a ranking system. So it's basically being like, okay, you know, America is great, we're number one, you want to come to us. You need to come to us to work because you can't find anything in your own country. Your country's down here, look how much we can pay you.
Even though it's not really that
Right,
much
but,
compared
like-
to what we know.
Right, but that's like a way that we're still establishing ourselves as a global economic empire. Is
Mhm.
look what we can do for others. We can bring them here and give them work, and they can, you know, send money back to their families.
And we also kind of promise more safety than other countries because, you know, you can get kidnapped going to some of these other countries that are less developed than we are. So people view it as better just to go to America, you know, like you said, a better opportunity is more safe for me as a woman being alone, you know, and being able to send that back as opposed to being like in Spain or something where they get kidnapped and there's like all types of different, or maybe like an Asian country where there's like communism or something, you know?
I hate to break it to you though, but sex trafficking like still exists like here too, and so they'll promise them. Like, cause
Safety.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
U.S. sounds safer. They'll promise them that, but like it's
But
still.
it's, I feel like in other countries, things like that are not more of a problem, but less addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like people, you don't think, like, I'm sure people from other countries don't, like, book a flight to America, like, oh, God, I hope I don't go to America and get kidnapped and killed, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas you think to other countries, like, where people are known for, like, tourists go missing and stuff,
Mhm.
it's like you feel more safe thinking of coming here. That's for sure.
Yeah. Even, like, in Africa, where, like, the nuns were killed, in that, like, they were nuns. Like, what better can you be than a nun, than a nanny caring for somebody else,
Yeah.
and you get decapitated, you know? So.
It's true.
What non-economic factors figure into this exploitation?
I think we talked about that, about how, like, you know, men view the second shift as not really their responsibility and they want to avoid it, and so that fuels needing someone to do that second shift, I think. I don't know if there's anything else we can think of.
You guys want to move on to the
To the
Next
chapter,
one.
Yeah.
Oh, here's some. Well, before we move. There's some that say, like, women may escape the expectation that they care for, like, elderly family members, or, like, defer to an abusive husband, a failed marriage. Sometimes they need an escape, and they can use it. They use it as an escape.
It says male unemployment runs high in the countries that supply male domestics to the first world. Unable to make a living, these men often grow demoralized and cease contributing to their families in other ways. Many female migrants tell of unemployed husbands who drink or gamble.
So they need, like, an escape route. In this way,
Yeah.
they're still providing for the family without
being there,
Being
having
there.
to deal with
Mhm.
husbands if they have problems with drinking and gambling.
All right. Should we move on? Good talk. All right. What's next?
I thought this one was interesting.
This one
This,
was-
what it means to be gendered me. I
Yeah.
thought it was actually really interesting.
I really liked this one.
It's kind of sad though.
It is really sad, but it's still really interesting how someone who just kind of, how do I want to say it? She doesn't fit the stereotypes as
Of being a woman,
being a woman, but she is. That's what she identifies as.
and she gets so
And she
mistreated.
gets so, mistaken, and just because she, doesn't wear a bra, doesn't wear nail polish.
Will wear a hat,
Yeah, wears a hat.
has her hair short,
Yep.
doesn't wear skirts, dresses, high
Yeah.
heels, any of that stuff.
So then what is it? Where are we?
You need to be a gender,
Gender
rebel.
rebel. Didn't she? Gender rebel / gender bending. Wasn't it just someone who doesn't really. I don't know if there was a definition. Someone who just doesn't really conform to what the typical.
The standard
Is, yeah.
Stereotype is.
So like we talked about for her, she doesn't wear skirts or a bra or.
Heels or dresses.
Yeah.
It's all polos and button downs and
Mhm.
shorts and jeans.
Baggy clothes.
Yeah. What are some of the consequences for people who do not follow gender rules? They get mistreated.
Yeah.
They get
Mistaken. Like when she was talking about how when she goes into the bath, like she avoids, living in like the living with it, how she has to like pretty much, or dealing with it, how she has to avoid using public restrooms, and how if she has to go in there, she knows like it's better if she goes with someone who can sort of verify that she's a girl or a woman and she should be in there. Or how if she has to, she goes as quickly as possible, avoids eye contact.
she won't go into dressing rooms.
Yep.
Either.
Yeah, she like buys it and goes home and tries it on because it's easier for her that way than having to go, oh
Identify
yes,
herself.
yeah, I am a woman, haha, oh that happens all the time. And
Well,
I
she
didn't even
says
think about the
here-
credit card part too.
I know.
She says here, I must be one gender or the other. I cannot be neither, and nor can I be both. So it kind of, that goes with the whole being a rebel. She can't decide, and that's what we were talking about last week with like the bathrooms. If you can't decide one or the other, everything's a binary. Like with the, especially with like where you have to choose like dressing rooms, which to go. There's not a family dressing room in places like there might be family restrooms where no one cares what gender you are when you go in unless there's other factors involved.
And like she said, she was only really comfortable in actual changing rooms because once she takes off her clothes, women are like, oh, I can see biologically that you are a woman, so okay, I feel fine now.
Yeah, she said, what was it, like before going into something like a bathroom maybe or somewhere, she would like make her baggy clothes tighter.
Oh yeah.
So they could see that she had breasts and that she was a female, so that they wouldn't be like.
But they wouldn't say anything to her like, oh, this is a women's bathroom or you don't belong here. Yeah.
Well, even when you look more towards like the male gender, even when you take off your clothes, they're gonna like look at her and she came in men's clothes. She might be a woman, but that means she's probably attracted to me. There would still be people that are gonna be like more standoffish and more judgmental towards her because they
just think she might be a lesbian and
it makes them uncomfortable to think about being stared at while changing in like a gym locker room or something. When you know that someone is attracted to the opposite sex, they are stigmatized. They're made to where no one will change directly in front of them. Some people will even go into the restroom, like the stalls in the bathrooms, to change so that they're not naked in front of people they view that way.
It does make me want to categorize her, though, like, as a tomboy.
It does.
Like, if I saw her in person, just, you know, reading about her, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, she's just a tomboy. She's just not sure, like, you know, what she wants to do. She's a woman, but she just, you know. I feel like that's the most, like, basic thing that we could grasp our minds around, like, as a society that isn't necessarily informed that, okay, she's a tomboy.
Yeah. Or people would automatically think she's a lesbian.
Or a lesbian.
Yeah, exactly. But that's... Sorry.
Like, not trying to go on her sexuality, but
Yeah,
but I was also saying that's right because we are always categorizing people. Like, if you see a woman and she's not, like, sexy and nurturing and feminine, then she's a stud. Automatically is what you assume when really you don't know anything about this person's life. So it's another thing about social perspective, too. It's just the way that people look at something like face on and you make the only assumption that you can make because, you know, if we don't have a category for something, then it's scary. It's like, oh, I don't know what to call her. Like, what is she, you know? It doesn't fit into our perception of what's right.
Yeah, when the first week in class, we talked about whether or not you can see gender and that you can see someone performing gender, but you can't see how they actually, like, identify or what they actually are until they take off their clothes, like what category they fit into. And this is another example. Like, sometimes these, like, people who are tomboys or whatever, you look at them and you're like, is that a boy or is that a girl? Like, you're so set up in this system to look at someone and say, she's a girl, he's a boy. Like, that person, I'm not sure. Let me look and watch what they do and see if I can figure it out.
Yeah, and I think it's embedded in us as a society to normalize what we can't understand. Okay, like, so is that a boy or is that a girl? I need to know so I can understand what's going on with them. When really, like, that's not our place.
Yeah. It says on page 72, we learn how to read people's genders by learning which traits culturally signify each gender and by learning rules that enable us to classify individuals with a wide range of gender presentations into two and only two gender categories.
Yep. So, like, we just are socialized to believe that it's one way or the other, and that she even says they're polar opposites. Like, you are either a man or you're either a woman. And if you encounter someone on the street that you're unsure, you kind of don't know how to react to that because you're so used to the black and white. This or that.
And our whole world, like, is set up to uphold this. Like, even the bathroom thing is the main thing. You have to choose woman or man, and you watch people go into the bathrooms and you're like, okay, where are they going in, because I don't know what they are. So by their decision you have your own questions answered about their gender and I think in some ways sexuality, because some people would rather just hold it till they get home rather than try to make the decision.
And, like, even filling out forms and, like, applying for scholarships. Like, I started to do that, and some of them are, you know, oh, these are for females or who have done blah, 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 blah. And so what if, you know, you may not, like this lady, if she had applied for it, whatever, and she goes into an interview or something, and she's like, yeah, you know, I am a female even though I don't look like one. Like, there's still forms you have to fill out and identify. So
That's why it's better for the ones that put the additional option to say, like, neither or either.
Prefer not to answer,
yes, it's better to have that
Mm-hmm.
third option for those people. Because unlike that other reading that we did where it was, like, 6 genders, I think, that she wanted us to have. And, like, that's not going to happen on government forms. So at least the third option kind of gives those people a way out of the binary.
It was interesting to read about the different stories and how people treated her because they thought she was a man.
Oh, yeah.
Like the stop sign, and then the people who, when she parked on the side street instead of, like, at the university, that guy got all mad. And she, like, kept walking away, but he thought that she was a young male.
Yep. So he could, like, yell at her pretty much. Yeah.
When she's just a female.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're good.
What are the elements of our gender performance?
What was it? Here we go. Okay, so it's culturally established sets of behaviors, appearances, mannerisms, and other cues that we have learned to associate with members of a particular gender. So, like, for women, it's, like, she even talked about, like, how we, like, take up less space in a chair. Like, we don't just sit there and, like, completely spread out. We kind of are compact and have appearances. We normally have, you know, longer hair, or we, you know, wear skirts, dresses, or tighter clothing if you don't wear skirts, dresses, like jeans, skinny jeans, whatever. And that's how we've learned to associate as, like, a female.
And anyone who starts to, like, guys who were wearing the skinny jeans, that was a huge.
I remember that was a huge thing when that first started.
Oh,
yeah.
Because that was more feminine.
Yep.
So they were viewed, like, really negatively.
Yep. And even if, like, I knew a lot of straight guys who wear skinny jeans because they look good in skinny jeans, and they, like, the first time they wore them, people were like, oh, I didn't realize you were gay. Why? Because I'm wearing, like, skinny jeans? Who cares? Yeah, and she talks about how, like, because our appearances and stuff are always being read as part of our gender display, we, quote, do gender whether or not. So no matter where she goes, she's still always doing gender. She always has to have a gender appearance, a gender display, performance. Even if she doesn't want to, even if she doesn't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm a female, or oh yeah, I'm a male. She always, like, has to, no matter what. She always is.
It says a person who does not do gender appropriately is placed not into a third category, but rather into the one with which his or her gender display seems most closely to fit.
Mm-hmm. That's true, I feel like.
Yeah.
Most of the time they don't have a choice. They have a choice between male or female.
Right.
And they don't usually
They can't
have
just
the
be a
option
person.
to do the third one and say neither or
Right.
either or both, like,
Or
both.
I'm just
or,
a person. Yeah.
That should be the option. I'm a person.
Yeah.
Human.
If that were an option, our world would be like a utopia.
Yeah, honestly.
But everything's so, like, the script that Dr. Honeycutt was talking about, where, like, you're raised a certain way. You don't even realize it because it happened when you were so young, but, like, that's why we sit more compactly in chairs, because when we were kids and we wanted to like sprawl all out, our parents were like, no, that's not how ladies sit.
Yep.
Ladies sit like with their legs
Legs
crossed.
crossed.
Oh,
And,
gosh, yeah.
Right.
it's how you're brought up, and though some people go against what they're raised to be, it's still such a common theme among households to keep them in one category or another.
Or even like bodily functions. You do not burp. Women
Yeah.
do not burp.
Right,
Men,
and then
you
a
can
guy
burp.
like
All out there.
like releases gas in class, and it's just so funny.
Right.
But if a girl
did it, it's
They're gonna be like,
embarrassing.
"Oh."
Like that girl, she does not have herself together.
Talk about Betsy's biography and experiences stemming from her gender display. Do you notice her own desire to categorize, normalize, or pathologize Betsy?
See, it's interesting because, like, when I read this, I didn't really I didn't want to categorize or draw anything. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I have to think in the perspective of this class. But
in
now I'm
general-
sitting there thinking, oh my god, there are so many times where I've been out in public and been like, are you a girl? Are you a boy? Like,
Oh,
I
it's
need
like
to,
an
I need
everyday
to know.
basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like-
awful. I'm like, okay, so when I lived in Wisconsin, there was this person who would sit on the side of the street in the same spot and like play their saxophone, and their name was Pat. And Pat would never tell you if they were a man or a female, and like all the kids would have like bets and like try and figure out like if Pat was male or female, because you really couldn't tell. And like now I'm sitting here reading this and I'm like, oh my god, I feel so awful. Like,
Well, that's the thing. Even when you take a lot of these classes, these ideas are always with you. You know
Mhm.
you shouldn't do it,
Yeah.
but it's so ingrained in you.
Yeah.
You can't help it. Like I have a degree before this. I'm a second degree student, and I was a women's gender studies major. I know I shouldn't be doing this. Like I've learned all the different ways it affects you, but I can't help it because it's how our society is
It is.
formed,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
just
gonna. It
the
was
way
like
it's
it
like
would
when
take
you go to
lifetimes for it
school.
go away.
you know, like when you're like in preschool or little kids, you know, it's okay, this is the girls' bathroom, you know, so and so is a girl, look at them, they are a girl, this is a boy. Boys don't play with dolls, boys play with trucks. So like even as you get older, you're like, oh yeah, okay, a boy does this, a girl does this, and then you
And
go out in the
everything's
world and
gendered in like the toy aisle. It's all either like blue or
Oh,
pink,
yeah.
and it's just everything is associated with the gender. Like if it's a truck, it's usually like blue or orange.
Yep.
Sometimes there will be something yellow on it because it's kind of gender neutral. But
Yeah.
girl cars are pink
Right.
and purple and
Yeah.
like the girly
And that's
colors.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Pink
cats and
purple.
dogs on their clothes. There's no like robots or anything like that. Trucks, no way. It's kitties and
I know.
glitter.
I'm an education major, and in my internship, my teacher would line them up, okay, boys and girls. Well, what happens if they don't identify as a girl or a boy? Like,
Right.
in the bathrooms in elementary schools, they're not family-oriented. They're
Yeah.
Boys and
boys
girls.
and girls. So, like,
Except,
what is this
Like
guy?
I think
this
it's. I'm not
kid
sure if
do?
it's every classroom or if it's just kindergarten classrooms. There's that bathroom in the room.
In the
like,
room,
if you
yeah.
can't
Hold,
hold it,
yeah.
you can go in that bathroom, and that bathroom doesn't have a gender, and I think that's good. But it's still like for the kids, even at like 5 years old, who know like I'm not really sure what
Mhm.
I am, then it's just sad.
Or like if they have the outer appearance of a boy, but they know inside that they're a girl, they can't go to the girls' bathroom because the
No.
teacher won't let them. Teacher's like, no, your name is
Right.
John. You
You're
are
going
a
to
boy.
boy."
You go in the boys' bathroom.
The kids would make fun of them.
Yeah.
They'd be like, why are you in my line? Like, this is girls, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And then, like, even if they, like, held it and tried to wait until they could go in the bathroom where they didn't have to decide, the teacher's going to be like, we just went to the bathroom. You don't need
Yeah,
to go.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like bathrooms are such a big deal in this life because seriously, like you don't think about it, but in women's bathrooms, I don't know if men's bathrooms have it, but we have the changing station
Oh,
for
Yeah.
babies.
usually, men's bathrooms don't. That's why
Exactly.
at like most restaurants will have the family changing room, so that if you're a dad with a kid, you can take your kid in there to change their diaper.
Yeah.
We have those things too that have like the tampons and like the
The chapsticks.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah,
why
they
do
have
you
like
need
my doll in
chapstick?
some of them for
Yeah.
like cramps, I guess, and then I guess in the guys they would have like condoms.
In
Yeah,
Australia,
that's
they had, I don't
nice.
know if you saw them, they had ones that had like hair straighteners. So you
Really?
would put money in it, and there's a hair straightener in the wall.
Yes.
So you could take the hair straightener out
Oh,
and fix
yeah.
your hair.
That's not sanitary.
Or they had, oh, isn't that
Nope.
gross? Or they had ones where you could buy like really crappy like ballet shoes. So like if your heels were hurting you, you could pay like $4 or something, and you'd get like this little pair of shoes to wear for the rest of the night.
Wow.
Yeah.
But and then you think about like stalls. Like we have stalls that are separated with doors. Men have the little urinals. So it kind of goes with, okay, men, you can be open with your sexuality. It doesn't matter. Like all
Girls
men,
have to
yeah,
close.
keep it close, keep it private. Like nobody needs to know what you have going on. Like
Right there with you.
All right.
And
So that's
that
it.
concludes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we could have gone on
I
and
was trying
talked
to-
so much longer.
I was trying to fill up the time.